Hello and welcome to the December 2nd edition of the Cluster API Provider AWS Office Hours, a sub-project of both Sync Cluster Lifecycle and Cluster API. Please do be aware that this meeting is conformant with the Kubernetes community guidelines. So in general, please be excellent to one another. If you have any items that you would like to add, please go ahead and add them to the agenda, and I will go ahead and link that in the chat as well. This meeting is also recorded. All right, and also if you can add yourself to the attending list, that would be great as well. To start with, we have a couple of PSAs that there have been a couple of releases of the AWS provider since our last meeting. 0.4.5 and 0.4.6 have both been released. Generally, they are bug fixes with the exception of one new feature, which is support for cluster names that are greater than 22 characters. All right. Do we have anybody with any topics that they would like to discuss?
Hey, Jason. I will mention that we have several test grid failures around end-to-end and conformance tests. I'm looking at one, and I filed, I'll paste this in the Zoom. Actually, I'll stick it in the agenda doc. I filed, whoops, sorry, Jason. 1378 is for one of the failures. And I haven't really determined exactly what's going on yet, other than the control plane endpoint in the AWS cluster doesn't seem to be getting set, which comes from the Elastic Load Balancer. This is a master branch test, so latest V1 Alpha 3. So I'm still looking into it, and hopefully I'll be able to clear up some stuff. But if I ask you all questions and they're related to this, I would appreciate any assistance that you can provide when we get around to it.
Sounds good. And just poking around really quick at TestGrid, it looks like the failures are mostly with the master branch. It looks like the tests are still relatively green for the release 04 branch. All right. Any other topics before we move on to the grooming and triage of the backlog? Nope. All right. You good for that, Andy?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Find the right Safari window. There we go. All right, so we have 10 issues that don't have a milestone. I'm going to work my way from the bottom of the screen up to the top. So the first one, which is the oldest, is throttling errors on described load balancers. This is probably something we should try to fix soon. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we need to do the metric stuff first. Yeah, just because it's a bit hard to basically need information about when it's happening first. I think it's
okay.
So it's would like to do some ordering. I think it does eventually do the right thing anyway at the moment. So I don't think it's super high priority right now.
Okay. That's fair. So I will I'll be optimistic and stick it in the next release, but I will go with long-term, given your statement that it most likely eventually resolves itself. Sound fair?
Yes.
Okay, cool, thanks. All right, Chuck opened one called deletes are too slow. I don't really think there's anything we can do here. It's been like this for a while. Sometimes instances take multiple minutes to get to terminated, releasing the elastic IPs, deleting the NAT gateways and internet gateways just take a while. Is anyone aware of any way to make any of this go faster, or should we just close this?
So I think it's kind of tricky because we do have a default parallelization now of greater than 1. So we are doing more of these operations in parallel than we previously were doing. But once we hit kind of the max parallelization, we do kind of block on some of these operations instead of kind of handling them more asynchronously. So we can potentially add some asynchronous handling around the termination of instances and some of the deletions some of the deletion components that take a bit of time right now, and that would help with kind of longer term scalability, but there's not much we can really do about the time it takes for a NAT gateway and the associated EIP to be released in the AWS APIs.
Yeah, I think the only thing we can potentially try to address is number 1 here. I noticed this last week or the week before when I was debugging some upgrade issues where, now I'm trying to remember the specifics, looking at the logs for the kubelet when the shutdown sequence had been initiated for the instance, the kubelet appeared to be preventing the shutdown from going through. And it was actually now I remember. So cluster API, the machine controller, as part of machine deletion, deletes the node resource from the cluster. And when that node resource gets deleted, the kubelet for the actual node is basically spin looping, trying to update this node that doesn't exist anymore. And eventually it figures out that it's not there and is able to terminate. So I think we can probably change some of the ordering around machine deletion and node draining and node deletion to try and fix why instances are taking so long to shut down. And I think that's about the only thing we can do. And I think it's a CAPI problem, not a Kappa problem. So I'll come back in and write that down. And at least for right now, I'm going to stick this in next because I really don't think that there's much we can do here other than fix the node deletion thing. Alrighty, next up is volumes dynamically provisioned in a different zone from the node zone block stateful set pods to come up. Has anybody looked at this? I'm assuming no, given that there's no comments. All right. Anyone interested in at least doing like a 5 to 10 minute review and triage of this offline?
I can take a look. It looks like it might actually be a cloud provider integration issue, but yeah, I can take a look.
It might be an issue with the default scheduler config. Where
usually they should have I forget what the predicate is called, but the zone aware thing.
Yeah, it should, but for some reason it may not be taking effect.
All right, thank you, Nadir. I'm gonna stick this in next until we figure out what to do with it. Okay, make the delete loop more, or delete reconcile loop more robust to errors. Okay. Erwin, I see you're here and you opened this. I haven't looked at this one yet, but I know Jason did.
Yeah, so I think this might be related to the I guess the discussion at the start of this call. But I noticed basically that currently the deletion, at least in the cluster controller, is very synchronous. So, but when I was an issue with somewhere in the middle of the deployment, it happens basically like, for example, I had in this case had a case where I had the wrong permissions, or basically was missing one permission where the ELB thing couldn't get deployed, and then basically at the deletion it will also get stuck at deleting the ELB because it again didn't have the permissions. So that gets a bit of a robustness issue in the deletion. So my proposal was basically to at some point my proposal was to remove the synchronous way of deleting everything, and basically just trying to delete everything, and then at the end gather the errors and see if all things got deleted correctly, to avoid being blocked somewhere in the middle of this delete process. I'm not sure if there's any reason why the delete process is synchronous in the first place.
Just because that was just the initial implementation, so it was ordered in that way. So the point is, there is a sort of certain critical path. Some things do need to be deleted before others, but probably some of them can be parallelized. So you just need to figure this out. Is
document anywhere which ones are critical to be deleted beforehand? Because I couldn't, I didn't know like from the top of my head which ones were critical.
Unfortunately, no. I don't. There's no documentation from AWS on that particular order issue.
Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to take this on, but I was wondering if there are any pointers which services need to be deleted really after each other.
I can probably, to be fair, I probably will be able to tell you. So I will leave some comments.
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty. So I think it's probably a good idea to try to make some improvements here in the next release, mainly because you're not the only one, Erwin, who's getting clusters that get halfway created and then get stuck and we can't delete them. So I think this is probably the sort of thing where we need to take it on a case-by-case basis, make a best effort first pass through, and then if there's additional things that crop up, we can do them in follow-up PRs, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Okay, we have a nil pointer when registering an instance to the API server ELB, and I read this one this morning. There was something about losing some subnet IDs because of a bug in a third-party app, and then things crashing. So I'm not sure how much of this is just user error versus stuff that we can protect against, but it probably would be worthwhile having somebody take a look at it. Let's see. Although, hold on, what is this? Did this actually fix it? 1342. I wonder if this came in late, because it looks like this might be done. Huh. Wonder why this didn't close out. Oh, went on the wrong branch. Okay. All right, so we need to get this forward ported, most likely. Um, okay, sorry for looking at that. I'll deal with closing that, or at least getting a new one. Events not generated when create, release, disassociate, elastic IP fails. This is one that I'd been looking at with Harish, and we just aren't creating events for these. So I think we should, given that we try to create events for everything else. And I'll stick that in the milestone. Audit the code base to make sure that we're generating for events for all AWS calls. I think we have most of them. Obviously, we missed it for the EIPs, but or the associations. Anybody like Jason, are you aware of anything else that we potentially don't have events for?
There may be other cases where we create like a transitive dependency, like when we're creating the route tables, we may not generate events for all of the individual operations that go into it. We may just be generating events for kind of the high level resource that we're creating. So it'd probably be a good thing to do a quick walkthrough and just verify.
Okay. I'm going to put help wanted on this one. Unless anybody wants to sign up for it. Alrighty. What is this one? Oh, okay. This one was actually not what the title says. All right, actually, hold on. Oh, this was the one, Nadir, that you think was fixed with the ability to see the stopped state of an EC2 instance and not consider that a terminal failure.
Yeah, and I think we did backport it, didn't we?
We did, but it wasn't in a release, and it might still not be in a release. Or actually, this might be what we did in 046. Let me double check. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, so that was in 046. So I think we probably just need okay. I will put this I don't know. I'll stick this in 04x just to have it somewhere, but this basically should be hopefully done. Okay, this was one that was interesting. So couldn't create a VPC because the user had exceeded the number of VPCs allowed for their account. And then when they tried to delete the cluster, the deletion didn't go through because when we were trying to describe the VPC or the security groups for the VPC ID was the empty string. And so we got this invalid parameter value. This is probably just yet another edge case that we need to go add some logic for. But I do think this is important to fix soon. Jason, I know you had done some stuff with the VPC descriptions. Does this ring a bell at all, or is it just yet another thing to go dig into?
Yeah, I think looking at it, I think the problem is just that we're failing to do a check for empty string.
Okay. And this one, Andrew, I think you have a PR open for, right?
Yep. Oh, might be in already.
Oh, did it get in? Oh, okay. Closed 20 minutes ago. Awesome.
Yep. I need a backport for it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Great. Well, that is all of the issues without milestones. So I will turn it back over to you, Jason.
All right. Does anybody else have any other topics for today? All right. If not, then it looks like we will call it early. Thank you very much, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Jason.